Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Rolling with the Spectrum. I am going to try and keep this one fairly short, and I'm going to try and be as respectful as possible. I do want to touch on the tragic events that unfolded last week in my hometown of Perth with a family and their two autistic sons. And look, the media and social media has blown up about the lack of funding from NDIS to this particular family, which led to the particular events that occurred last week in Perth. While that may be one of the big driving forces that led to the incident happening, I think there's a lot more underlying issues that need to be addressed. One thing I think needs to be addressed, this is just my opinion and my opinion only, and no one else's. Like I say as a disclaimer in all my videos, I am not a medical professional. I am just a parent doing it tough with a child on the spectrum, just like these parents were as well. So I think one of the biggest things that gets overlooked for a parent or parents or even caregiver, because I know a lot of families, the care goes to the grandparents or aunties, uncles, friends of the family and so on. I think a lot of the thing that gets overlooked is their place of employment and the actual care and the resources that is offered to the parents whilst they're in this crisis. I say crisis because these kids, when they have their meltdowns, it can be very stressful on both parents and caregivers. I've had days where I have picked the daughter up from school after a big meltdown. I have seen the damage that she has caused. She is so overwhelmed and her energy is that drained that when you pick her up and you see this little person so drained and overwhelming, it is such an emotional roller coaster. You don't know what to do. All you know is that you got to comfort this poor kid instead of disciplining them. Because you discipline that kid, it's disaster. You know, everything that you taught when your kid does something wrong, you got to remember the kid isn't doing anything wrong. It's their way of expressing their emotions because they are dysregulated in this moment. The prefrontal cortex of their brain disengaged, and that inner lizard brain kicks in, and there ain't no stopping them. But you as a parent have to step up and comfort these poor kids whilst inside your heart is breaking and cracking and not knowing what to do. Then you turn up to work the next day because you've had the last 2 hours of work off, and you get told off by your place of employment. How come you had 2 hours off? You're getting docked 2 hours of pay for that last 2 hours off or whatever. Instead of offering them a helping hand saying, how is your kid? Don't worry about this yesterday afternoon. Would you like to go and see a counsellor or a psychologist? We can offer you time for that stuff. Was this stuff offered to these parents to stop their escalating de-escalating into this hole that they were in before the incident happened? What pillars were put in place to help the parents, apart from NDIS cutting funding to the children who probably needed their support? There's going to be haters out there saying they're from a well-off area of Perth, but end of the day, it's for the kids. Whether they're from a low-income area or a high-income area, the kids don't know where they're from. The kids are kids. They're just trying to live their life. And if they're on the spectrum, they probably wouldn't have a understanding of the value of money at that age. I know they were teenagers, but still. You know, they're kids. Why deny them support they need just because of their parents' wealth? And that, so you want equal opportunities, equal rights in this country. Let's do it across the board, no matter what your income or your earnings are. I think that's one of the problems, and I don't know if a change of government's going to help that, and I don't know what this Thriving Kids is going to do to help this situation or stop this situation from happening. But I think something in the legislation for work health and safety has to change also to allow employers and employees to have this time off and give them the resources they need at work to thrive as a functional employee and have a safe place to go to work and make their life a lot easier when they come to work, so they're not always stressed about their child. And schools have to do a lot more as well, whether there's more training in their curriculum at university, whether there's more workshops on looking after children on the autistic spectrum, whether the actual curriculum at schools need to change to cater for these kids in mainstream, because a lot of other kids who aren't neurodivergent also struggle with the new wave of schooling because society is changing. They're not factory workers anymore that's going to sit behind a desk or sit behind a workstation for hours on end anymore. You know, work's not like that, like it used to be back in the Industrial Revolution, okay? Work has changed, school hasn't, and society has changed. So there's got to be a big restructure, a big overhaul of children and their needs and their parental needs whilst their parents are at work as well. And a lot more has got to be done to support the parents. For kids with special needs. I don't know if there's any other support outlets for parents with kids with Down syndrome or cerebral palsies or other disorders or disabled kids. So if there is and you're watching this, please let me know down in the comments. So that's all I have to say about it. Look, I do feel so downhearted and sorry for what happened, and I hope members of the family who's related to these guys bounce back and have an answer, and the community bounces back well, and the autistic community get an answer and a bit more support and awareness for our children's future. So thank you for listening and getting this far in the video, and like I say at the end of every video, peace, love and autism.